You know that weird moment when the bill hits the table and everybody suddenly turns into a different person? The loud friend goes
Split
quiet.
evenly?
The friend who ordered 3 cocktails says, "Should we just split it evenly?" Somebody laughs like it's no big deal. And you sit there doing the math in your head, realizing your grilled chicken and water somehow turned into $72. You pay it anyway. You smile.
It's
You tell
fine.
yourself it's fine. But on the drive home, there's this little feeling you can't shake. Not because the dinner was amazing. Not because it changed your life. Just because deep down, you know you didn't really spend that money for the food. You spend it to avoid friction. And that is how a lot of people stay broke without looking broke. It usually doesn't happen in one giant financial disaster. It happens in tiny social moments that feel harmless. A birthday dinner you didn't want to make awkward. A weekend trip you couldn't really afford but didn't want to miss. A concert everyone else already bought tickets for. A group gift that somehow became your responsibility too. A brunch, an Uber, a wedding shower, one round of drinks, one last-minute Airbnb split. None of it seems large enough to matter on its own. But that's exactly why it works. It slips past your defenses. You don't experience it as overspending. You experience it as being normal. And that's the trap. A lot of middle-class people think they have an income problem, when what they actually have is a social spending problem. They think they need a raise. Sometimes they do. But sometimes the real issue is simpler and harder to admit. The people around them have set a price for belonging, and they keep paying it. Let's make this real. Marcus is 29. He lives in Atlanta. He works in marketing for a healthcare company and makes $84,000 a year. On paper, Marcus should be doing okay. He's not rich, but he's not struggling in the obvious way either. After taxes, health insurance, and retirement contributions, he brings home right around $4,950 a month. Rent is $1,780. Car payment is $390. Insurance is $165. Gas is $190. Utilities, internet, and phone come out to about $290. Groceries are around $500 because food is expensive now, and he's trying to eat like an adult. Student loans are $260. Gym subscriptions, household stuff, and random life admin add another $275. That leaves him with roughly $1,100. If you stop the story there, you'd say Marcus should be building savings just fine. Over $1,000 left each month sounds solid. That's the kind of number people point to when they say things like, "You just need to be disciplined." But Marcus has one problem. Actually, he has 5 problems. They all have names, they're all in his group chat, and they all love making memories. His friends are not reckless people. That's what makes this interesting. They all have jobs. They all talk about budgeting. They all complain about how expensive everything is. But somehow, they still live in a constant stream of paid activity. Thursday drinks. Saturday brunch. A birthday dinner every other week. A wedding season that somehow lasts half the year. One friend's engagement party. Another friend's housewarming. Somebody's boat day. Somebody's quick weekend in Miami. Somebody's cabin trip. Somebody's, "We're all getting old, we need to do more stuff together." Speech right before everyone agrees to spend $400 they don't have. Marcus doesn't think of himself as irresponsible. He's not out buying designer clothes. He's not gambling. He's not financing a luxury car. And yet at the end of most months, there's barely anything left. Some months there's nothing left. A couple months, he taps the credit card just to smooth things over until the next paycheck. He keeps telling himself the same lie a lot of otherwise smart people tell themselves. Next month will calm down. But next month never calms down. Next month just has different names attached to the same spending. This is where people usually make the wrong diagnosis. They think the problem is weak willpower. It's not. The problem is that modern adult friendship can quietly function like a second cost of living layer. Rent is obvious. Your car payment is obvious. Insurance is obvious. But there's another bill a lot of people are paying every month, and it doesn't arrive in an envelope. It arrives as invitations. That's why this hits so hard. The money leaves your account, but it doesn't feel like a financial decision. It feels like a social decision, which means you judge it by a completely different standard. If something is labeled for fun or for people, your brain gets weirdly generous. You'd hesitate to spend $100 upgrading your mattress, even though you use it every single night. But you'll spend $140 on a dinner you barely enjoyed because 6 other people were there, and the group vibe was already in motion. Look, human beings are built for belonging. We copy the group. We mirror the group. We absorb the group's idea of normal before we ever consciously evaluate whether that normal makes sense for us. That's true with language, clothing, habits, and especially spending. If your friend group casually treats $80 dinners like a standard Friday night, you stop experiencing that as a luxury. You experience it as baseline. And once something becomes baseline, saying no feels emotionally bigger than the purchase itself. That's why this kind of spending is so sticky. It's not about greed. It's not even about materialism most of the time. It's about tension avoidance. It's about not wanting to be the difficult one. Not wanting to be the cheap one. Not wanting to be the person who says, "Hey, I actually can't do this." For a lot of adults, especially in their late 20s and 30s, financial stress is not just about numbers. It's about image management. They are paying money to protect a version of themselves in other people's minds. And that's expensive. Marcus finally sees it one Sunday morning. He opens his banking app, not because he wants to budget, but because he feels that low-grade financial nausea people get after a packed weekend. Friday was drinks and tacos. Saturday was brunch and a day party. Sunday there's a fantasy football draft buy-in plus a grocery run because his fridge is empty. He starts scrolling backward through the last 60 days. One dinner, $86. Birthday gift, $40. Uber, $32. Ticket for a comedy show, $95. Weekend cabin share, $210. Drinks after work, $54. Another dinner, $68. Wedding travel deposit, $300. Another split bill. Another Uber. Another small expense. When he adds it all up, the number is just over $1,900. That's not his entertainment budget for 6 months. That's not his annual fun money. That's 60 days. And here's the scary part. If you asked Marcus what he spent nearly $2,000 on, he couldn't even tell a clean story. There's no one meaningful purchase. No lasting asset. No upgrade that made his life easier. No emergency. No major mistake he can point to and say, "That right there is what got me." It's just a blur of social spending. A collection of moments that felt small in real time and huge in aggregate. This is the reveal a lot of people never get. You don't need a dramatic vice to sabotage your finances. You don't need a gambling problem. You don't need luxury taste. Sometimes all it takes is having a decent income, a weak boundary, and a friend group with expensive habits. Now, to be fair, not every dollar spent with friends is wasted. That's not what this is about. A life with no community is miserable. Shared experiences matter. Celebrations matter. Going out matters. The point is not to become some joyless robot who can only feel peace while meal prepping chicken in a glass container. The point is that many people have stopped choosing their social spending. They're just inheriting it. And inherited spending is dangerous because you start funding a lifestyle you didn't actually design. One person in the group gets promoted, and suddenly restaurants get nicer. One person starts making a little more money, and now the trip has to be worth it. One person dates somebody with expensive taste, and the whole group's standard drifts upward without ever being discussed. Nobody calls a meeting and votes on this. It just happens. Social life has inflation, and it usually rises to match the least price-sensitive person in the room. Meanwhile, the most financially stretched person says nothing, swipes the card, and calls it being easygoing. That person is often not actually easygoing. They're anxious. They're just hiding it well. And that's another reason this issue gets missed. Financial stress doesn't always look dramatic. A lot of people who seem socially active and put together are living with almost no margin. They can still go to dinner. They can still take the trip. They can still show up to the wedding in a decent outfit. But behind the scenes, they're pushing bills, carrying card balances, delaying savings, or telling themselves they'll reset next month. They're not visibly falling apart. They're just never getting ahead. That state is way more common than people think. It's what I'd call financial thinness. You look stable from the outside, but there's no cushion under you. One copay, one car repair, one last-minute flight home, one rough month at work, and everything gets shaky. That's what makes all the small, social spending so costly. Not because fun is bad, but because margin is precious. If your social calendar keeps consuming your margin, then your social life is not neutral. It is one of the reasons you feel behind. Marcus starts to understand this when his friend Tyler sends a message about a bachelor weekend in Scottsdale. Flights, hotel, dinners, golf, nightlife. Should be pretty chill, the text says, which is what people always say right before something costs $1,000. Marcus starts doing the real math. Flight, maybe $350 if he books now. Hotel share, probably $280. Golf, $140. 2 dinners, another $150 minimum. Drinks, Ubers, random weekend leakage, easily another $200. Gift for the groom, maybe $75. Suddenly, pretty chill is pushing $1,200. And the weirdest part is that the social pressure doesn't come from anyone saying, "You have to spend this." It comes from the fact that everyone else is acting like the spend is self-evidently reasonable. That's how financial norms spread. Not through direct force. Through silence. Marcus stares at the number and has a thought he's never really let himself think before. Why does being a good friend keep costing me a month of progress? That question changes the whole story. Because once you ask that question honestly, you start seeing the pattern everywhere. The issue is not just one trip. It's a system. It's the belief that love, loyalty, and presence need to be proved through spending. That every close relationship must be maintained inside a paid setting. That saying yes equals caring, and saying no equals drifting apart. But real friendship doesn't actually work like that. Or at least healthy friendship doesn't. Healthy friendship can survive low-cost plans. It can survive honesty. It can survive somebody saying, "I want to see you. I just don't want to spend $200 doing it." If a relationship only feels comfortable when money is flowing, then the problem is not your budget. The problem is the structure of the relationship. That sounds harsh, but think about it. If the only way you and your friends know how to connect is through restaurants, bars, travel, and tickets, then your friendship has become a spending environment. It might still be real. It might still matter. But it comes with a built-in financial burn rate. And once Marcus sees that, he changes one thing. Not everything. Just one thing. He stops reacting to plans and starts pricing them. That sounds simple, but it changes everything. Instead of hearing birthday dinner and processing it as emotion, he processes it as cost. Dinner isn't dinner. Dinner is meal plus tax plus tip plus parking or Uber plus whatever everyone decides to do after. A concert isn't a ticket price. It's ticket plus fees plus drinks plus transportation plus food because you got home late and didn't cook. A wedding isn't just showing up for someone. It's gift, travel, hotel, clothes, hair, food, and all the weird unspoken extras that pile on around the edges. Most people get into financial trouble not because they can't do math, but because they keep using fantasy math. They price social events based on the cheapest visible piece and ignore the full chain reaction. Once Marcus starts using real numbers, the calendar looks very different. Then he adds a second filter. Instead of asking, "Can I technically cover this?" he asks, "What does saying yes to this mean I'm saying no to?" That question is brutal in the best way, because almost every unnecessary expense survives by pretending it has no trade-off. A dinner isn't just a dinner. It might be next month's IRA contribution. It might be the last $120 needed to finish your emergency fund goal for the month. It might be the extra payment that would finally stop the credit card from hanging around. Once your spending is connected to a real alternative, it stops feeling harmless. Marcus begins testing boundaries in small, almost boring ways. When friends suggest a steakhouse, he says, "I'm down to hang, but not trying to do a $100 dinner this week." When the split bill comes and it clearly doesn't make sense, he says, "I'm just gonna cover what I got." When someone pitches another weekend trip, he says, "I'm sitting this one out, but let's do something local soon." No speeches. No guilt. No fake emergency excuse. Just clear language. At first, it feels awkward. Of course it does. Most useful adult skills feel awkward at first. But then something interesting happens. The world doesn't end. Nobody explodes. In fact, two of his friends privately admit they've been stressed about money too. One says he's been putting too much on credit cards. Another says he keeps agreeing to stuff because he doesn't want to look like he's falling behind. That is the part nobody talks about. A lot of expensive social behavior is collective pretending. One person thinks everyone else is comfortable. Everyone else is thinking the same thing. So the spending continues, not because it makes sense, but because nobody wants to be first. And that gives you more power than you think. The first person to tell the truth often changes the tone for everybody else. Marcus doesn't become antisocial. He doesn't disappear. He just starts organizing life differently. He invites people over to watch games. He suggests early coffee instead of late drinks. He does Saturday workouts with one friend and cheap tacos after. He starts hosting a monthly potluck. He learns something important. If you propose the plan, you often control the price point. That alone can save hundreds every month. That shift matters because it moves you from defense to design. A lot of people live financially reactive lives. They wait for invitations, then decide whether to absorb the cost. But when you design your own social rhythm, you stop being dragged around by other people's budgets. You make space for connection without surrendering control. And there's a deeper psychological benefit too. Cheap plans are usually less performative. People show up differently when there's less money in the room. Less posturing. Less pressure to look polished. Less of that strange restaurant table theater where everyone is half enjoying themselves and half aware of what everything costs. Some of the best friendships actually get stronger when you remove the expensive setting and leave only the people. 3 months into this change, Marcus notices something that has nothing to do with his checking account. He feels lighter. Not